Hi, welcome to our channel of IGNOU Audiobooks, Indira Gandhi National Open University, School of Extension Development Studies, SOEDS, Master of Arts Urban Studies, MOS, Second Year, Med 047 Ecology, Environment and Urban Development, Block 1 Key Environmental Issues, Unit 1 Ecosystem and its Components, 1.0 Objectives. After studying this unit, you should be able to times discuss about history, meaning, components, and functions of ecosystems, times describe the principles and process of ecosystem functioning, times explain the interrelationship between biotic, abiotic, and detritivores, times be able to understand that all the ecosystems are interlinked, times the role of the biogeochemical cycles in our daily life. 1.1 Introduction. Each organism lives in a physical location called place at a particular time, which is called its habitat. It is here that the individual organism it carries out its struggle for existence. This place can be small or large, i.e., the organism can be living in a ditch or a river or ocean or corner place in the garden or in a forest. The organism has to interact with the other organisms present there within the confines of its physical boundaries and also to the physical conditions that prevail there. The combination of both physical and biological conditions form the ecosystem. Ecosystem is made up of two words, eco and system. Eco pertaining to the environment, whereas the system consists of a set or collection of independent parts or subsystems that function as a unit. The system works only when there is resource from outside, so, if we think of the earth as an ecosystem, the resource from outside would be the sun. The system responds to the outside resource input by processing the energy and transmitting it to the environment output. The output from the system is directly proportional to the input. If input ceases, then the system would no longer function. Thus, ecosystem can be said to be energy processing, nutrient regenerating system whose components have evolved over a long period of time. The boundaries of the system are determined by the environment. Plants and animals represents the subsystems through which it functions. Ecosystems can be of two types, aquatic and terrestrial. They can be natural or man-made. Aquatic ecosystems include freshwater, marine water, marshy waters as well as swamps and coral reefs, whereas terrestrial include all types of forests, tropical, temperate, evergreen, deciduous, dry, as well as deserts. 1.2 History of ecosystem concept. The term ecosystem was first proposed by Sir A.G. Tansley in 1935. Ecology, however, has its origins plant geography and natural history. Early plant geographer like Carl Ludwig Willdenow (1765 to 1812) and Heinrich Alexander von Humboldt (1769 to 1859) pointed out that different regions of the world with similar climate supported vegetation which was similar in form, even though the species were different. Modern scientists like Johannes Warming (1821 to 1924) combined plant morphology, physiology, taxonomy, and biogeography and wrote a book on plant ecology called Plant Samfund. The concepts of Darwin's natural selection was also accepted as a mechanism guiding the evolution of new species. Mendel's work on inheritance also influenced the scientific thinkers, and these two combined to give foundation for the study of evolution and adaptation, the field of population genetics. Darwin's theory of natural selection together with new understanding of genetics of inherited characters provided mechanism for understanding the relationship between organism and environment. This is the focus of ecology. European biologists advanced the idea of organic nutrient cycling, and Fiend-Levlin used and coined the term producer and consumer. Lindemann was influenced with this concept. Hence, Lindemann together with Tansley traced the energy available relationships and published a paper trophic dynamic aspects of ecology, and this marked the beginning of ecosystem ecology. Animal ecology initially developed independent of plant ecology. The early animal ecologists were R. Hesse of Germany, Charles Elton of England, Charles Adam and Victor Shelford in America. Shelford gave a new direction to ecology by stressing that there is interrelationship between plants and animals. Thus, now ecology became a science of communities of both plants and animals interacting with each other. 1.3 Components of ecosystem. The components of the ecosystem can be basically divided into biotic and abiotic. Inputs into the system are also both biotic and abiotic. The biotic component consists of all the living organisms living in the ecosystems and also those who move from one ecosystem to the other. All ecosystems, whether terrestrial or aquatic, consist of three basic biotic components: the producers, the consumers, and the decomposers. The biotic component consists of all the living organisms living in the ecosystems and also those who move from one ecosystem to the other. All ecosystems, whether terrestrial or aquatic, consist of the producers, the consumers, and the decomposers. The producers or the autotrophs consists the energy capturing base. The system consists mainly of green plants and photosynthetic bacteria. They are capable of harnessing the solar energy with other abiotic inputs like CO2 and water, and converting it into complex molecules like glucose, starch, amino acids, and many various other products. They store these complex molecules in their bodies as food and transfer it to the next trophic level. Autotrophic metabolism is greatest at the upper layers of the ecosystem. Thus, highest level of metabolic activity occurs at the upper layers of the ecosystem, i.e. at the canopy of the forest or the upper surface of the ponds or the oceans. Inorganic compounds like CnCO2H2O, 2. Organic compounds like proteins, carbohydrates, humic substances that link abiotic and biotic substances. 3. Climate regime like air, water, and other physical factors. 4. Phagotrophs, chiefly animal, which ingest organisms and particulate matter. Saprotrophs, chiefly bacteria and fungi, which chiefly feed on dead organic matter. There is interaction of the autotrophic and heterotrophic components. There is a cybernetic link between the two components and between all different the ecosystems. Trophic level, trophy is equal to nourishment, an ecosystem is to layered. It has 1. An upper, green level autotrophic self-nourishing layer, 2. Brown belt or heterotrophic level of soils, sediments, decaying matter. This belt can be further divided into layers containing 6. Inorganic compounds like CnCO2H2O, 7. Organic compounds like proteins, carbohydrates, humic substances that link abiotic and biotic substances, 8. Climate regime like air, water, and other physical factors, 9. Phagotrophs, chiefly animal, which ingest organisms and particulate matter. Saprotrophs, chiefly bacteria and fungi, which chiefly feed on dead organic matter. There is interaction of the autotrophic and heterotrophic components, cybernetic link between two components and between all different the ecosystems. The consumers or the heterotrophs utilize the food stored by the autotrophs and process it for use. The energy obtained is used for their metabolic activities like respiration, maintenance of body heat, movement, etc. Some food is also stored in the bodies which may be used for reproductive activity. The unprocessed food passes out the body as phases. It then decomposes and forms part of the brown belt of the soil. The heterotrophic component of the ecosystem can be divided into two subsystems, the consumers and the decomposers. The difference between the two is that the consumers feed on living tissues while the decomposers break down the dead matter or the detritus. Heterotrophic activity in the ecosystem is highest in places where there is concentration of organic matter, that is in the upper layers of the soil, in the litter of the ecosystem and in the sediments of the ponds and rivers. All aquatic ecosystems, consumers can be of the first or the second or the third trophic level. The consumer will be of the first trophic level if it feeds directly on the producer. Thus, consumer of the first level is any heterotrophs as small as an ant feeding on the plant or as big as the deer or the elephant feeding on the plant. The consumer of the second level would be any organism which would feed on the first level consumer. Thus, the consumer of the second level would be any organism which would feed on the first level consumer. Similarly, the consumer of the third level would be any organism which would feed on the second level consumer. And they all form a chain called the food chain. However, in nature, simple food chain rarely exists. Normally, food chains are interlinked and complex and form structures called food webs. In general, the more complex is the food web, greater is the species diversity and better is the health of the ecosystem. So, in order to maintain a better homeostasis of the ecosystem, there should be greater diversity of organisms. Decomposers are those organisms who break down the complex molecules into their elemental states. Decomposition involves a number of processes, including fragmentation, mixing, change in physical structure, egestion, and concentration. All these processes are carried out by diverse organisms linked together in highly tangled food webs. However, true decomposition is carried out largely by the microflora, that is, the bacteria and fungi. Also important are the organisms that feed on dead matter. Bacteria are the dominant decomposers of animal material, whereas fungi are major decomposers of plants. Decomposers form an important part of the ecosystem, as without them there would be no recycling of minerals. 1.3.2 Abiotic components. Abiotic components of the ecosystem consist of the inactive or the dead organic material, the nutrients, and the soil. In short, all the substances found on the brown stratum of the earth. The other abiotic substances includes CO2, O2, and all other nutrients derived from weathering of materials and from precipitation. Solar radiation, the major source of thermal energy, is the major determinant of the climate. There is variation in the sunlight received due to angle of sun rays received by the spherical earth and the distribution of land and water on the earth. A portion of the solar radiation is reflected back towards the space. This is called the albedo. Rotation of the earth produce air currents like the westerlies, polar easterlies, trade winds, etc. These winds along with the temperature regimes influence rainfall all over the world. Thus, the climate of any region is a combination of temperature and moisture, which are also influenced by the latitude and location of continental land mass. Regional climates determine conditions over area, but the actual climate conditions under which the organisms live vary considerably. These variations or microclimates are influenced by topographical differences, exposure to radiation, and other factors. The abiotic environment of a ecosystem depends on the climate and the prevailing weather conditions. The climate determines the availability of water and degree of heat. It thus influences the development of soil, nature of vegetation, and also the type of biological community. As the climate determines the moisture and temperature, it also influences the nutrient cycles, photosynthesis, and decomposition. It is well known that 70% of all biotic cells are composed of water. The availability of water and its physical and chemical characteristics are also important abiotic factors. Because of its molecular structure, water has the ability to absorb considerable quantity of heat with small rise in temperature and gives up heat slowly. It has high viscosity and exhibits surface tension and has strong attraction for water molecules. Water is universal solvent and had the capacity to dissolve, Co to O to P, N, etc. These properties have pronounced effect on life. Thus, water is a major selective force in the evolution of plants and animals. Moisture or the lack of it has major influence on the distribution of life, particularly to plants. Based on the availability of moisture, the distribution of plants are classified as mesic or moist and others to xeric or dry. Depending upon their nutritional requirement and availability of water is the distribution of the animals in different geographical locations. Most plants maintain a stable water balance by combination of osmotic pressure and turgor pressure known as water potential. Under normal conditions, decreasing water potential pulls water from the soil through the plant to the leaf. Under water stress, plants resist differently, usually by combination of drought avoidance and drought tolerance. Severe drought decreases photosynthesis, causes leaves to turn yellow, premature shading, and even death. Too much water can also create stress and may even result in death. The animal response to moisture stress are more complex than those in plants. Most animals have an excretory system by which they maintain water balance. To a certain extent, animals can tolerate a degree of dehydration, but extreme cases cause death. The temperatures in which plant and animal live depend on solar radiation. Organisms maintain a balance between heat energy gained and heat energy lost to the environment. Response to the thermal energy environment differs between plants and animals. Temperature regimes set upper and lower regimes within which organisms can grow and reproduce, influencing the spatial distribution of plants and animals. Plants receive their energy from the environment. Heat affects the physiological processes of plants, especially photosynthesis, and various phases of their cycle have their optimum range of temperature. Plants are mostly ectothermic. Animal response to temperature is more complex. Animals depend upon the environment as a source of heat are ectothermic, and those that depend on their metabolic heat to maintain their body temperature are endothermic. Some animals also go into hibernation to reduce high energy demand of staying warm or cool. The influence of light on individuals' organisms goes beyond photosynthesis. Firstly, it affects the vertical distribution of plants, aquatic and terrestrial, by intensity and spectral qualities. The daily periodicities of plants and animals are under the influence of day-night cycles. The biological clock is useful not only for regulating the sleep and work pattern but also regulates the activities of the season of the year. Seasonal changes in light brings along changes in temperature and precipitation, and seasonal periodicities like phenology, breeding seasons, feeding activity, and migration of animals. Other periodicities include the lunar tides associated with the lunar cycles. 1.4 Biogeochemical cycle. The major source of nutrients in the soil is weathering. The formation and development of soil begins with the weathering of rocks. The rocks, when exposed to combined action of cooling and heating, develops cracks. Water seeps into these crevices and freezes and expands, thus cracking the rock into smaller pieces. Accompanied by physical changes are the chemical changes in the rocks resulting in decomposition of minerals. This releases the nutrient and aquatic system through leaching. The kind and quality of elements and nutrients available for circulation in the ecosystem affect the growth, reproduction, and the distribution of plants. The nutrient requirement of each organism varies. In general, some nutrients are required in large quantities by the organisms. They are called macronutrients, like nitrogen, calcium, phosphorus, carbon, etc. Others are needed in small amount. They are called microelements or trace elements, Zn, Mg, Fe. They, however, are essential for various metabolic activities without which the organism would fail to survive. Nutrients cycle, or the biogeochemical cycles as they are also called, can be of two types, the gaseous represented by the oxygen, carbon and nitrogen cycles and the sedimentary represented by phosphorus cycles. Nutrient flow from the living into the non-living component into the ecosystem is a regular flow. By these cycles, the plant and animals obtain necessary nutrients for their existence. 1.5 essential processes, the inputs of solar energy along with the nutrients is harnessed by the photosynthesizing organisms. The energy in form of food is passed to the consumers, that is the herbivores, the carnivores, and then to the decomposers. Two processes are essential for the survival of the ecosystem. 1. Photosynthesis, which involves fixing of solar energy and arranging it into complex molecules forming the plant tissues. 2. Decomposition, breaking up of the complex organic molecules into simple inorganic substance, and final dissipation of energy. 1. 5.1 Autotrophic processes. Photosynthesis. Photosynthetic activity of autotrophs results in production of organic compounds and fixation of solar energy. The ecosystem operates mainly on the energy produced by the chlorophyll-bearing vascular plants and algae, both terrestrial and aquatic. Energy enters the ecosystem as visible light. Light falling on the leaves is absorbed by the chlorophyll pigment and moved to reaction centers where energy is transferred to an electron of the chlorophyll molecule. The energy of the molecule is now raised to a higher state and the electron passes through a series of chemical reactions. These results in the synthesis of ATP from ADP and NADP and oxidation of water H and O. The H ions then reduce NADP ions and form water, release O2 and supply the electron to replace the one lost to the chlorophyll molecule. Biochemical changes takes place which involve oxidation of reduced carbon compounds into ones of less chemical energy. These chemical rearrangements are accompanied by degradation of heat energy, production of respiratory heat, outputs of water, carbon dioxide and nitrogenous compounds. The formula of photosynthesis is 6Co2 6H2O energy C6H12O66H2O6O2. The immediate compounds of photosynthesis include glucose and by-products of water and oxygen. Further synthesis produces free amino acids, proteins, fatty acids, fats, vitamins, pigments, and coenzymes. These products are synthesized in different parts of the plants. Plants can be divided into types C3, C4, and CAM plants, depending on the pathway adopted for fixation of CO2 for photosynthesis. Plants with C3 or Calvin-Benson cycle have 3-carbon photosynthetic pathway. While some plants have another pathway facilitated by internal leaf anatomy. They have vascular bundles surrounded by a layer or sheath of cells rich in chlorophyll, mitochondria, and starch. These plants are called HC4 plants. In C3 plants, CO2 reacts with RUP2, ribulose biphosphate, a phosphorylated sugar with 5-carbon compound catalyzed by ribulose biphosphate. Carboxylase oxygenase to give 2 molecules of 3-carbon product, 3-phosphoglycolate. PGA. The plant converts this into 6-carbon sugars and other products and uses some PGA to reform RUP2 molecules. When RUP2 molecules combine with O2, it forms 2-carbon molecule, phosphoglycolate, and PGA, in contrast to 2-PGA formed. In reaction with CO2. This pathway is called photorespiration and uses more energy than it produces, thus reducing the efficiency of C3 photosynthesis. A 3-carbon compound, PEP or phosphonol pyruvate, is the CO2 acceptor in C4 plants. CO2 entering the leaves reacts with PEP to form malic or aspartic acids. Each are 4-carbon acids. Enzymes in the plant breaks down malic acid and aspartic acids to form 3-phosphoglycolate. PGA, 3-carbon compounds as in Calvin's cycle. At the same time, the 2 acids also produce pyruvic acid to form more PEP. C4 pathway appears to be adaptation to environments with high light intensity and high leaf temperatures. C4 plants have high water use efficiency. These plants are mostly herbs which are found in tropical and subtropical grasslands, shrubs in desert and saline regions. Grasses form an important part of the C4 plants, though C4 plants are more efficient users of water, yet C3 plants are more dominant part of the vegetation. This is because C3 plants are more productive in low light and cool temperatures. Step 1. CO2 incorporated into 4-carbon organic acids. Step 2. Organic acids release CO2 to Calvin cycle. Succulents are semidesert plants and possess a photosynthetic method known as crassulacean acid cycle. In order to minimize transpiration, stomata in these plants open during the night. At night, PEP fixes CO2 and stores it as malic acids in the vacuoles of the cell. During D, the day malic acid by enzyme action gives up CO2, which is ROOP2 and is included then into C3 cycle. CAM cycle is similar to C4 in fixation of malic acid and to C3 plants in the fixation of ROOP2. This cycle is, however, inefficient and slow and is well suitable for plants growing in tough arid conditions. The efficiency of photosynthesis can be assessed in two ways: the amount of energy required for the evolution of a molecule of oxygen, or by the ratio of calories per unit of harvested vegetation to the solar radiation intercepted. 2. Release 1 mole of oxygen and fix 1 mole of carbon dioxide. A green plant needs about 320 kilocalorie of light energy. For 1 mole of oxygen evolved, approximately 120 kilocalories of energy refixed. That is, the efficiency of the system is roughly 38%. Of the solar radiation received, the usable spectrum is from 0.4-0.7 mu, about half of the incident light on vegetation. In general, the net photosynthetic efficiency of land area is about 0.35% and of the ocean is about 0.13%. 1.5.2 Decomposers. Bacteria are the dominant microfloral decomposers of animal matters, while fungi are major decomposers of plant material. The bacterial decomposition can be both aerobic and anaerobic. In any case, each decomposers function in a way so as to pave way for the other organism to act upon. Thus, bacteria and fungi secrete enzymes into the plant material and make way for the other group of bacteria and fungi to utilize the more resistant materials such as cellulose and lignin to move in. The succession of microflora occurs till the material is finally reduced into organic nutrients. Decomposition is aided by fragmentation of the detritus by the litter feeding. The invertebrates detritivores. They fall into 4 major groups. 1. Microflora, represented by the protozoans. 2. The mesoflora, egg mites, potworms. 3. Macroflora, egg nematodes, caddice, mayfly, etc. 4. Megafauna, represented by earthworms, snails, millipedes, etc. Decomposition. Decomposition is a process in which the complex organic substances in of tissues, plants, and animals are broken down into simple organic substances. It is a complex of many processes and includes fragmentation, mixing, change in physical structure, ingestion, egestion, and concentration, accompanied by diverse organisms linked together in highly tangled food webs. Decomposition involves all organisms to some degree, but the true decomposers are bacteria and fungi, and by other detritivores which feed on dead matter of all kinds. Early stage of decomposition involves fragmentation, leaching, loss of soluble sugars and compounds which is carried away by water. This results in weight loss and changes in the chemical composition of the dead organic material. Consumption of organic material by decomposers also results. Consumption of organic material by decomposers also results in oxidation of organic compounds accompanied by release of energy and their degradation into smaller and simpler products. This conversion of organic material into inorganic matter is also called mineralization. It results in the gradual conversion of dead organic matter into nutrients available to the primary producers and microbes. At the same time, when these decomposers act and feed on the dead organic material, they may resynthesize some of these compounds into the decomposer's body tissue and may tie up the nutrients in their bodies as long as the decomposer is alive. Decomposition of dead matter, whether animal or plant matter, is also dependent on abiotic factors such as temperature and moisture. In summer and rainy season, when temperatures are high, microbial activity and colonization of dead flesh by ball flies is very rapid. In case of plants also, increase in number of fungal species. Flora was fast when there was humidity and temperatures were high. Most of the fecal matter has little left to decompose. The dung of many grazing herbivores contain partially digested matter, which is a rich source of food for specialized detritivores. In addition to fungi, bacteria and earthworms, the amount of energy in the dead organic material decreases with time. The least decomposable material that is left behind is humus. Humus is derived from lignin and is a structureless dark-colored complex chemical compound whose characteristic constituents are humine. This humus, along with plant flavonoids, amino compounds and carbohydrates and silicate material, form the humic matter of the soil, which undergo very slow decomposition. 1.6 Laws which govern ecosystems. All ecological processes are a result of transfer of energy which follow the physical laws of energy transfer. Sunlight is the ultimate source of energy, which keeps the solar system functioning. Light arrives on the earth as particles known as photons. This energy exists in two forms. One is heat energy, which warms up the atmosphere and drives air and water current and water cycles. The other form of energy is the photochemical energy, which strikes the leaves of plants and is used for photosynthesis. This energy is then transformed and stored as complex chemical bonds of carbohydrates and other carbon-based compounds, which is the source of energy for other living compounds. Energy exists in two forms, potential and kinetic. Potential energy is stored energy capable and available for doing work. Kinetic energy is energy in motion. Work in ecosystems can be of two kinds: storage of energy and the arranging of matter. Reactions that take place can be of two types: exothermic, which results in heat loss. On the other hand, some chemical reactions require to absorb energy to proceed. These are called endothermic reactions. 1.6.1 Laws of thermodynamics. The two laws of thermodynamics govern the storage and expenditure of energy in the ecosystem. According to the first law of thermodynamics, energy is neither created nor destroyed. It may change its form, pass from one place to the other, or act upon matter in various ways. Thus, regardless of the transfers and transformations, no gain or loss in energy takes place. As for example, when wood burns, the potential energy is lost from the molecular bonds of the wood equals the kinetic energy released as heat. This reaction is exothermic. That is, entropy increases. Just as in case of burning of wood, although the total amount of energy in the burning of wood does not increase or decrease, much of the potential energy degrades into forms incapable of doing further work. It is transferred to the surrounding environment as heat. This reduction in potential energy is referred to as entropy. In ecosystems, energy is transferred from one organism to the other in form of food. A portion of it is stored as energy in the living tissue, whereas a large portion is lost as heat. In ecosystems also, energy is degraded from a more organized form to a state of less organized form, observed in the case of burning of wood. In closed system, With passage of time, there is maximum enthalpy. Living systems are, however, open systems with constant input of energy in form of solar radiation. It provides means to counteract enthalpy, so at a glance biological systems seem not to conform to the second law of thermodynamics. 1.6.2 Energy flow. Energy flow is the basic characteristic of an ecosystem. The flow of energy starts with its fixation by plants through photosynthesis, a process which needs energy expenditure. Plants depend on the energy stored in their tissues and seeds till their machinery works. Energy accumulated by plants is called primary productivity. The total energy assimilated by photosynthesis is called gross primary production. However, like other organisms, plants require energy for various metabolic processes and for reproduction. Energy remaining after respiration and stored organic matter is called net primary productivity. Net primary production accumulates over time as plant biomass. Biomass is expressed as grams dry weight of organic matter per unit area. The proportionate allocation of primary production to below ground and above ground biomass tells much about different components of the ecosystem. A high root to shoot (RS) indicates that most production goes into the supportive function of plants. A low RS ratio indicates that the plant has most of their biomass above ground and assimilate more light energy, resulting in higher productivity. The ratio of net primary productivity to gross production (NPP/GPP) ranges between 40 to 80%. The most efficient plants are those which do not maintain a high biomass, egg grasses, algae, phytoplanktons. In any ecosystem, annual net productivity changes with time and age. As age increases, more and more is needed for maintenance and less remains for net productivity. There is variation in productivity of different ecosystems and also within one system from year to year. During photosynthesis, autotrophs fix energy and convert inorganic molecules to complex organic molecules. The heterotrophs depend on energy-rich organic molecules synthesized by the green plants. They consume it as food and obtain energy to do live. All physical activities and metabolic work is done by the energy stored in chemical bonds, which is converted to heat energy. Energy flows from one compartment to another, e.g., a food chain, from one trophic level to the other. But when one organism eats another organism, the energy that moves between them is in the form of stored chemical energy, flesh. The origin of all the energy in an ecosystem is the sun, and the fate of the energy is eventually to be released as heat. Energy flows through an ecosystems in the form of carbon-carbon bonds within organic compounds. These bonds are broken during respiration when carbon joins with oxygen to produce carbon dioxide. Respiration releases energy that is either used by organisms, life processes, or is lost as heat. Secondary productivity is the energy available to the heterotrophic component of the ecosystems. Energy, once consumed in form of food, is the net energy available for maintenance and production. This energy is either diverted to maintenance or growth or reproduction, or is passes out as urine and fecal material. The remaining energy left after maintenance is used for the production of new tissues, and this energy is called secondary production. Secondary production is highest when birth rate and growth rate of the individuals are highest. For example, a hare or a population of hares ingests plant matter. We call this ingestion. Part of this material is processed by the digestive system and used to make new cells or tissues, and this part is called assimilation. What cannot be assimilated, for example, may be some parts of the plant stems or roots, exits the hare's body, and this is called excretion. Thus we can make the following definition: assimilation is equal to ingestion Excretion. The efficiency of this process of assimilation varies in animals, ranging from 15 to 50% if the food is plant material, and from 60 to 90% if the food is animal material. The hair uses a significant fraction of the assimilated energy just being a hair, maintaining a high, constant body temperature, synthesizing proteins, and hopping about. This energy used, lost, is attributed to cellular respiration. The remainder goes into making more hair biomass by growth and reproduction. The conversion of assimilated energy into new tissue is termed secondary production in consumers, and it is conceptually the same as the primary production or NPP of plants. In our example, the secondary production of the hair is the energy available to foxes who eat the hairs for their needs. Clearly, because of all of the energy costs of hares engaged in normal metabolic activities, the energy available to foxes is much less than the energy available to hares. No organism lives wholly on another, all the resources are shared. Thus food chain becomes interlinked to form a food web. Energy flows in complex, trophic relationships called food webs. The complexity of these food webs varies within and between ecosystems. The herbivores, carnivores, omni are part the energy flow pathway. In any ecosystem there are two types of food chains, the grazing food chain and the second the detrital food chain. The detrital food chain is common to all ecosystems. The detrital food chain is the major pathway of energy flow in terrestrial and littoral ecosystem. In any case, at each step of energy transfer there is loss of energy. The number of trophic level transfers of energy varies from 3 to 5. After each trophic level transfer the biomass declines. Thus if the total weight of individuals at each successive level is plotted, a sloping pyramid is formed. In case of aquatic ecosystem, the pyramids of biomass may be inverted. The energy always decreases from one trophic level to the other and is pyramidal, regardless of what information is used. Values generally get smaller as you go from producers to primary consumers to secondary consumers, etc. This is due again to the fact that energy transfer between trophic levels is very inefficient, ca. 5% to 10%. Ecological efficiency is the ratio of energy flow within or between trophic levels, population or individual organisms. An thumb rule in ecology allows a magnitude of 10 reduction in energy as it passes from one trophic level to the other. Ecological efficiency is calculated as the energy supply available to trophic level N1 divided by the energy consumed by trophic level N. Thus, the efficiency of hares at converting plants into flesh tissues of their bodies. In equation form for our example, the ecological efficiency is equal to fox production hair production. Thus, if 1000 calories were consumed by the herbivores, hair, about 100 kilocalories would be converted into herbivore tissue, 10 calories in the first level carnivore production and 1 kilo into second level carnivore. Another way to summarize trophic structure of ecosystems is in the form of ecological pyramids. 3 types of pyramids based on 3 different kinds of information. 1. Pyramid of numbers, numbers of individuals in each trophic level. 2. Pyramid of biomass, weight of living material in each trophic level. 3. Pyramid of energy, energy content of each trophic level. The amount of energy to the second and third level carnivore is thus so small that few organisms could live if they depended on that source alone. These efficiencies vary among organisms, largely due to widely differing metabolic requirements. For instance, on average, vertebrates use about 98% of assimilated energy for metabolism, leaving only 2% for growth and reproduction. On average, invertebrates use only 80% of assimilated energy for metabolism and thus exhibit greater net production efficiency, tilde 20%, than do vertebrates. Plants have the greatest net production efficiencies, which range from 30 to 85%. The reason that some organisms have such low net production efficiencies is that they are homotherms, or animals that maintain a constant internal body temperature. This requires much more energy than is used by poikiloderms, which are organisms that do not regulate their temperatures internally. 1.7 Biogeochemical processes, matter cycles through the system as minerals. Plants absorb mineral nutrients from the soil. These nutrients are locked in cells as components of organic matter. Primary consumers eat plants and secondary consumers ingest the flesh of primary consumers along with the minerals they contain and recombine them in their cells. On death of the organisms, the decomposers break down dead organic matter, DAM, and then return the minerals to the soil. These minerals may be taken out of the soil quickly by plants or can eventually through geological processes become locked within rocks until it can be oxidized for energy in a process called nitrification or assimilated by an organism into its biomass in a process called ammonia assimilation. Plants incorporate the appropriate forms of fixed nitrogen into their tissues through their root systems. The plants then use it to manufacture amino acids and convert it into proteins. Nitrogen, fixed as proteins in the bodies of living organisms, eventually returns via the nitrogen cycle to its original form of nitrogen gas in the air. The process of denitrification starts when plants containing the fixed nitrogen are either eaten or die. Fixed nitrogen products in dead plants, animal bodies, and animal excreta encounter denitrifying bacteria that undo the work done by the nitrogen-fixing bacteria. In this step, the bacteria break down urea, uric acid, and other nitrogen compounds produced by decaying organic matter to reform N2 gas. Generally, N2 is the end product of denitrification, but nitrous oxide, N2O, is also produced in much smaller quantities, up to 10%. The water cycle is key regulator to all the biogeophysical processes of the Earth. Life on Earth is dependent on water and variations in its availability. The Earth's hydrological water cycle controls the distribution of water, which is always in movement and always changing states from liquid to vapor to ice and back again as rain. The water cycle is integrated with the complex physical, chemical, and biological processes that sustain ecosystems and influence climate. Water cycle plays a central and integrative role in the dynamics of the Earth system. Its physical state is closely linked to energy exchange within the global climate system. Through linkages with the carbon cycle, water and the water cycle help to regulate the release and sequestration of carbon dioxide as well as other trace gases. The movement of water through the hydrological cycle comprises the largest flow of any material in the biosphere. The water or hydrologic cycle intersect with most of the other element cycles, including the cycles of carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, and phosphorus, as well as the sedimentary cycle. The processes involving each one of these elements may be strongly coupled with that of other elements, and ultimately, with important regional and global scale climatic or ecology, the reservoir for water is usually the ocean, lakes, groundwater, or water vapor in the atmosphere. Precipitation transfers water from the atmosphere to the ground. Evaporation transfers some water from the ground to the atmosphere, but transpiration does most of the job. Transpiration is the evaporation of water from plants as water escapes the stomata as water vapor. Deforestation has been breaking the water cycle. Groundwater is not transpired to the atmosphere, so precipitation is not created. This has led to desertification, The other well-known and important biogeochemical cycles, for example, include the oxygen cycle, the phosphorus cycle, the sulfur cycle. As climate change and human impacts are being felt, the biogeochemical cycles are being studied to conserve the balance of these cycles. Biogeochemical cycles always involve equilibrium states, a balance in the cycling of the element between compartments of life. Life and climate interact. Hence, healthy biosphere is critical for the survival and health of human beings. 1.7 Summary: the global biosphere is a complex system. Ecosystems are structured, can be viewed as a series of biotic components that are linked together and thus interact with one another like a cybernetic web. The fact that ecosystem components are linked has an important ramification. Disturbances to one component impact on all other components of the ecosystem to varying degrees. Nutrient cycling. Energy flow is a one-way process in ecosystems. In order to persist, ecosystems require a constant input of energy. 1. The sun is the ultimate source of energy for most ecosystems. 2. Primary producers capture a fraction of energy in sunlight striking the earth and convert it into chemical energy. Carbohydrate, that is stored in tissues of the primary. 3. Energy in tissues of primary producers transferred to consumers as each consumes tissue of other organisms. About 90% to 95% of energy present in one component is lost as heat at each transfer. Very inefficient process, very little energy left when decomposers get to it. 4. The energy of an ecosystem occurs on an open system. The sun constantly gives the planet energy in the form of light while it is eventually used and lost in the form of heat throughout the trophic level of a food web. All energy transfers in ecosystems follow the laws of thermodynamics. Human agricultural ecosystems are good examples of simple, unstable ecosystems. Monocultures of single crop plants consumed by livestock and or humans because they are unstable, they require additional energy inputs to prevent them from collapsing. E.g., insecticides, herbicides, fertilizers, irrigation water, etc. Irish potato famine is an example of the instability of human agricultural ecosystems. Trophic relationships. We can sometimes describe who eats whom in an ecosystem as a food chain. More often, however, food chains are cross-linked into more. The ecological efficiency is about first rule for the transfer of energy through trophic levels and up the food chain. In general, only about 10% of the energy consumed by one level is available to the next. Complicated structures of food chain are called food webs. The values generally get smaller as you go from producers to primary consumers to secondary consumers, etc. This is due again to the fact that energy transfer between trophic levels is very inefficient, ca. 5% to 10%. No life can exist without water. Requirement of water varies from organism to organism and their distribution varies according to their needs. Example: xerophytes, hydrophytes, mesophytes. The movement of mineral ions and molecules in and out of ecosystems occurs through biogeochemical cycles. The composition of the atmosphere is due to biochemical processes in soil and biota as well as chemical and photochemical processes in the atmosphere. The atmospheric concentration of carbon dioxide is markedly influenced by the terrestrial and marine ecosystems and, in the long-term perspective, also by geological processes. The water or hydrologic cycle intersect and connects with most of the other element cycles, including the cycles of carbon, nitrogen, sulfur, and phosphorus, as well as the sedimentary cycle. The processes involving each one of these elements may be strongly coupled with that of other elements and ultimately with regional and global climate. Thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video with next chapter.